Where did life on Earth come from? We operate on the assumption that it evolved from single-celled organisms here on Earth, and the single C-celled organism evolved from whatever prebiotic chemistry was thriving here on Earth. In recent decades, we've broadened this awareness of the formation of life to ask the question, could life have formed somewhere else on some other planetary surface and then get thrust into space, typically by subsequent meteor impacts that fling rocks to escape velocity? Because if the surface of that planet is teeming with life as the surface of Earth currently is, then there could be stowaway life in the nooks and crannies of these rocks. And these rocks would travel through space for hundreds, maybe thousands of years before they find a place to land. If any of those trajectories crosses Earth's orbit, for example, if it's blown off of Mars and one of these rocks goes towards the inner solar system where Earth's orbit is, there's a likelihood it would land on Earth. If any of those microbes survive that trip, then you have traveled microbial life from one planet to another in our solar system. There's a word for that, panspermia. That if you want to get really precise, it's like lithopanermia, where litho is the geologist word for rock. So it would be life forms stowing away in the nooks and crannies on rocks. So here's how evolution works. If you didn't otherwise know, no organism adapts to anything. It either has built in the capacity to survive a change to its environment or not. Usually not. So most species that have ever lived on Earth are now extinct because they did not survive whatever was necessary to pass through the next portal in the ecosystem that they were delivered. So who survives in any generation? There's variation. Some are taller, some are shorter, some can survive severe conditions, others can't. Usually it doesn't matter. But if the conditions change, only some of them walk through and the rest die. So evolution is a giant killing machine because no organism lives or dies in vain. The ones that live survive to tell another day. Well, if you survive space, that's not surviving on the ISS, just, oh, we have a drought this summer or a little cold this winter, or no, space. If you survive space, well, what goes on in space? Well, it's really cold. And then as you plunge through the atmosphere to the planet you're visiting, it gets really hot. And while you're in between planets, you're subject to intense radiation fields, high energy radiation fields from the sun. When I say radiation, I mean of any kind. Light is radiation. All right? We don't think about it that way. But the electromagnetic waves are all radiation, only some of which are damaging to life. You have red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet, and then you have ultraviolet that can make you blind. It can also give you skin cancer. Then you have X-rays that gets into your DNA. And then you have gamma rays. Yeah, it's bad. As you go to these higher energy waves, space is full of those waves. We are shielded here on Earth's surface because primarily our ozone layer, it's 3 oxygen atoms bound together that eats high energy radiation from the sun. How does it eat it? It absorbs it, kicks one of the oxygen atoms away, and so the light energy, the radiation energy, converts to kinetic energy. It disappears. So we are safe here under this blanket that we call our atmosphere. All right, so now we're moving between planets and we have a whole generation of microbes. They all have their own variations within themselves. I'm going to expect most of them are going to die because they have no history handling high radiation exposure as a species, but individually they can vary. And individually some would have more resistance than others. Whoever survived has the capacity to sustain high temperature, low temperature, suspended animation. There's no water out there in interplanetary space. You have to do this for centuries, maybe even testing panspermia, millennia, and you have to survive intense radiation from the sun. Here's an interesting fact. We learned a few years ago from the research of Marta Cortesau at the University of Porto in Portugal. She did a good experiment. She said, let's test this space hypothesis on one of the hardiest life forms we know here on Earth. What would that be? Mold. Mold grows everywhere. In some municipalities, maybe all. You can't get a loan, a mortgage, to buy a house unless it's inspected for mold. Mold behind the walls, behind the wallpaper, in PL, in nooks and crannies of the house. Mold thrives. And it was recently revealed that there's mold on the International Space Station in what is, I guess we can call it their gym locker. All right? There's an exercise area of the International Space Station. You get a little sweaty, you hang your stuff on the side. Doesn't really hang because there's 0G. Just place it there, and after a while they removed it and there were mold stains on the wall. How did the microbes get there? Well, we're inside the space station, so it's protected, but somebody had to have brought it up. Somebody who didn't know there was mold on their body or on something that they brought with them. There is mold there. So what Marta and her team did was take a look at mold spores, subject them to what we know to be the conditions of interplanetary space, or better yet, subject them to the conditions from the surface of Mars, because maybe we want to go there one day. When she did this, she found they survived levels of radiation dose hundreds, and in some cases thousands of times greater than what would kill us. So the space station itself is mildly insulated from space radiation. You're in metal vessels, so you get some free shielding from that regardless. The real question is if you are outside the space station, or you can ask, how far away is the space station from Earth? And so I have my trusty schoolroom globe here. It's between 200 and 300 miles above Earth's surface. What is that 400 kilometers? 300 to 400 kilometers. So that converts to about 1 centimeter above Earth's surface. Oh, I forgot there's a Mercure 4/10 of an inch above Earth's surface. So that's where the space station orbits. So space station is not in deep space. The space station still has some shielding from Earth's magnetic field, not from our ozone layer, however, because it's well above that, but there's still some in-house protection. But what Marta did was test not only for the radiation doses you would get nearby Earth, but also tested surviving in deep space it for what you would get in deep space. This experiment to show that mold spores survive space tells us that forget the inside of the space station. If mold happened to be on the outside of the space station, if it got there by any means at all, somebody had mold on their glove and they touched the outside of the space, the spores could survive there. This changes our priorities when we take spaceships and visit other planets or other moons or planets. We sterilize those spacecraft before they go to certain protocols so that we don't forward contaminate them with life forms that are on Earth. Because if we want to look for life where we're going, it's not interesting if we found the life that we accidentally dropped off. So if mold spores are hard to kill and our normal sterilization procedure does not kill them, we could inadvertently be spreading Earth-based mold spores elsewhere in the solar system. Or maybe we're spreading mold spores that began somewhere else and we're just sending them back to where they came. Another interesting fact is that a higher percentage of the mold spores survived closing when they were irradiated in a vacuum rather than just in air. So it sounds a whole lot like these mold spores came on a rock to Earth. That's what it sounds like. I'm just saying we need more. We would check DNA because if it has DNA that doesn't match anything else on Earth, that's a good sign that it came from somewhere else. But if it does match Earth, maybe DNA is the same everywhere. That would be another interesting discovery. This is just the beginning as we explore what plant life does exist, any genetic modifications necessary or not, so that in the future life in space and life on planetary surfaces, it's not something that requires DoorDash deliveries for your food. You find some way to grow it, to sustain it, so that you engage in what NASA calls in situ resource utilization. And the more we know about the survivability of life to intense radiation doses, something it would naturally get in space, the better able we will be to think about how to shape our future in space and on planets and elsewhere. So that's what's up with that. Next time you see mold on the wall, give it some respect. It might have come a long way to get there. Till next time, keep looking up. Most people think they'll never fall for an online scam. But the truth is that scams just don't look like scams anymore. Last year, over 100 million Americans were targeted, and globally, scams cost more than $1 trillion. Yes, you heard that right, $1 trillion. Scammers are using AI, real voices, real-looking emails, realistic text to make fraud almost impossible to spot. That's where Bitdefender Premium Security comes in. Today, Bitdefender is offering StarTalk viewers an all-in-one plan that gives you complete security and enhanced privacy across Windows, Mac OS X, Android, and iOS. You'll get award-winning protection against digital threats, including advanced scams, real-time email, protection a password manager, and an unlimited VPN, so your browsing stays private on any network. Bitdefender Premium Security also includes AI-powered scam protection, actively detecting fraud in emails, texts, websites, and apps before it ever reaches you. With over 17 years of AI expertise, Bitdefender analyzes billions of threats daily so you don't have to. Right now, you can try Bitdefender Premium Security free for 90 days. If your life lives online, this is one of the smartest ways to protect it. Get your Bitdefender Premium Security plan for free today at bitdefend.me/alk.